Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to this video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I have a lot to talk about in this video. It's going to be more of a podcast style, so put this in the background while you're cleaning, while you're driving, whatever. Because I am going to show some charts, more specifically about 5 charts, maybe more. What I have is 5 charts up for something very significant, which is Neptune in Aries. Now, today marks, as I'm recording this, March 30th, around 8:59 a.m. this morning, Eastern Standard Time, was the first official time of Neptune in Aries. Now, here's the thing. He doesn't really stay here very long because he does go retrograde, and he moves back into, I put it right here, back into Pisces on October 22nd because he does go retrograde in June. Now, he doesn't really officially fully enter Aries until January 27th of next year, 2026. And why is this significant? Because it sets the tone for the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that I've been talking about, just like I was talking about in every, astrologer out there that was actually paying attention to that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020. And we all know what happened with that. But anyway, they get very close. Saturn and Neptune get pretty close. The day that Saturn stations retrograde on July 13th, you can see here Saturn's at 1 degree, 56 minutes. Neptune's at 2 degrees, 9 minutes. But it doesn't actually have, they don't actually have that exact conjunction until February 20th of next year, 2026. Let me back up, okay? Because we are going to talk a little bit about that. Maybe I'll do a whole video on that. I'm not sure. But let's just back up for a minute and talk about the fact that Neptune is in Aries. Now, because it takes Neptune around 165 years, right, to circle the sun, he's in a sign for about 13 or 14 years, okay? So the last time... I say about, all right, because this changes sometimes, especially with Pluto. Pluto's the worst one with that. Then the last time Neptune, I'm giggling, but it's not funny because I've been talking about this Neptune-Saturn conjunction that's going to happen next February. And again, all of this is leading up to that, right? Neptune officially being in Aries, Saturn's quickly coming up on that. And actually, I'll pull up the chart for when Saturn enters Aries. But Neptune has not been in Aries, drumroll, since the Civil War. That's right. Between 1861 and 1875. All right. I had to look. I was looking in I literally have my Astrology of Cosmic Science book next to me because I was like, when was the last time Neptune was in Aries? And she doesn't go back that far. She goes to 1887. And I was like, oh, and that was in Gemini. So I must have been before that. And here we are, 1861, during the Civil War. I just did a starseed reading for the week about the major events happening, and I try to stay as positive because I have faith in humanity. I really do, and the fact that we have so many synchronicities around that. I'm not saying that there's. Let me also say this. I'm not saying that there's going to be a civil war. But what I am saying is that kind of energy, right, is going to bleed out into the collective consciousness, especially being that this country of America specifically, I know that some of you watching do not live in the United States, but we went through a Pluto return recently. So we have a little bit of an issue with that. But Neptune going from Pisces, the end, the void, the mysterious, the unknown, right? Back to the beginning of it all, the alpha and the omega of Aries. It's a complete shift. It's quite literally starting over, right? And Neptune in Aries doesn't get as lost as it did in Pisces. It does not get as, let's just say it this way, confused. And I know that I use that word of confused of Pisces because Pisces is the two fish and they're swimming in opposite direction. Aries is the ram, very focused, very determined, very head first. So when our dreams and our unconscious and when our inner feminine and our intuition and our spirituality and our feminine, receptive, mutable side has such a dominantly masculine energy, it can trigger a lot of us. And it can trigger a lot of us to get our butts moving. That's why I said that new moon eclipse in Aries, I said that was going to be the most significant eclipse of the year. And I wasn't joking, especially with this, because it's kind of like kickstarting all of this Aryan craziness. And I'm laughing. You guys know that I'm an Aries sun, okay? I understand this Aries energy. It can feel very overwhelming. It can get very fast. And it can feel uncontrollable. So when you've got, the almost, I wouldn't say introverted, but the more calm, soft, steady, in a way, energy of Pisces, shifting into the not so calm, uncontrollable rage of Aries, again, we all get this sense, because it's especially with Neptune. This is a trans-Saturnian planet, right? So this is a very collective planet that we're talking about. This is not Venus or Mercury, even, especially Mercury, because Mercury's constantly doing a lot of things. Neptune doesn't do it as fast. If anything, it does it a lot slower, and one of the slowest, right? So, and I'm trying to collect my thoughts here, because I kind of just jumped on this because I didn't have much time today and I wanted to get this video out. So moving from the everyone, right? The good of all of Pisces to a very self-centered energy of Aries. This is our ego, right? Our ego shining forth with leadership and strength and charging forward, especially if we have very undeveloped Aries energy in our charts. Those parts will become more impatient. Those parts will become more unwilling to budge, unwilling to move, unwilling to mature. Very, very childish it can get, the Aries energy can get, right? Especially if it has not developed and it has not evolved. So think about that on a collective level. This is why I'm really pushing this forward. Think about that on a collective level. If anything, it feels like the collective has kind of split into two. And both sides are calling each other childish. Both sides are calling each other immature. Both sides are calling each other unevolved. Both sides have their own duties and their own opinions and their own missions. So when Neptune is here, right, in its journey in Aries, again, not really fully officially, because it will head back into Pisces for a little bit from October 22nd until January 27th, right? Because again, he goes retrograde in June, and they stay, those trans-Saturnian planets stay retrograde. Well, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto for around 5 or 6 months, okay? So it's a while. So from now until October 22nd, we can start to see these developments. So think about what you're going to experience from now until October, right? And then come back to that next January. I know that's a big question, but come back to that. Because what's going to happen from now until October, so around 6 months, 5-6 months, will set the tone for the next 13 or 14 years of your life. I know. Again, I'm asking a lot of you. This is a very, very good time for manifestation. This is why I keep telling you guys. This is why I'm planning to buy a house by April of next year. Because I know what's going on in the astrology. This is a perfect time to kind of dive deep into the unaccessed parts of what astrology can really do. You want to manifest something, I already told you, with that new moon eclipse in Aries, go for it. Now is the time. And I know that normally you have a lot of astrologers that say, don't do it when Mercury's retrograde or Venus is retrograde, yada, 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 fucking yada. It doesn't matter, because all of these other much more powerful gods in the mythos, in the logos. They're taking control of all of this. So, as much as I love little Hermes, he doesn't really have much power right now. Okay? And to be honest, Venus retrograde in Pisces, she's kind of been feeling herself in Pisces. She's kind of been rediscovering herself. So if anything, a lot of us have been rediscovering ourselves. We've been finding that love with our own inner spirit, our own inner feminine, to create. Right? To again, take that Aries energy. The alpha point of the beginning. We become more self-assertive, more grounded in our energy, right? Because when you think of an Aries, or just the Aries archetype, let me not put it on a person. Let's think of Aries as the archetype. If you go up to the energy of Aries as an archetype and say, go do this, the Aries is going to laugh at you and say, I'm going to go do this instead. Simply because you told me to do it. I don't want to do it now. It's kind of like you don't tell an Aries that you don't ask them if they're angry and are you angry at me? Are you angry? Because then they start to get angry at you asking if they're angry. That's Aries. Again, in Neptune, right? Neptune is our chance. I know that I say Uranus is our chance to access those higher consciousness, and it is. Uranus is a way of accessing the higher consciousness in like a almost like, think of Hermeticism. That would belong to Uranus, right? But then when you think of like Buddhism, that would belong to Neptune. All right, because Neptune is the poet archetype. Neptune is the musician, the literarists, right? Think about Neptune as the god of Poseidon. Controls the ocean, controls the water, all of the animals in it, all of the living beings in the oceans, and all of the water actually just all of the water. I know that he's the god of the sea, but he controls all the water. So you think about that and how water can be very calm, very soothing, very cleansing, also cleansing, right? It's water, and it could quickly turn very sour, and it can be one of the most destructive forces on the planet if given the right temperature. Because when water warms up, when the air warms up, that's what creates storms, crashing with the cold, right? So Neptune in Aries is that chemical reaction. You're firing up water. It's like it almost doesn't make sense in a way, right? Because you would think that one would quell the other. One would cancel out the other. But that's not what happens in Neptune and Aries. It almost becomes twice as powerful because you've got, in my opinion, all right, my personal opinion, if anything, learning about the elements and talking about the elements is sort of on my lesser side of understanding. I haven't studied that as much as I have studied other parts of astrology, but I can tell you, in my opinion, what I've learned, water and fire are the two most powerful elements out of the 4. 5, technically, if you count the ethereal. Again, this is like alchemy that we're talking about. Water and fire. Think about it. How many times do we see water and fire? Especially with fire. I know I've said this before when it comes to alchemy. You send something in the wind, it can come back. You send something in the water, it can come back. You bury something, someone can dig it back up. But when you burn something with fire, you can no longer get it back. It has been fully destroyed into ashes. I know. So the positive side of this is that we can fully realize our higher consciousness, our higher vibration, right? We can contact those higher, inaccessible, like I said, inaccessible, invisible, unattainable realms of consciousness. We can really glide. Let me use that word because it's more of a Neptunian word, right? The more positive Neptunian word is gliding into our spirituality and our intuition. Most importantly, our intuition to help build on a material level, because Neptune brings the ethereal to the material. Neptune brings heaven down to earth. Okay? But the negative side of that, unfortunately, we can get scared. We can fall right into fear. We can fall into obsession, into indulgence, into addiction. We can fall into this victim mentality, right? We can go full hermit mode and not want to come back out. That's the scary part of the shadow side of Neptune. Dreams turn into nightmares. So this very powerful energy of Aries, again, the alpha in the beginning, it's all about what we do with it. What are you going to do with it? And I highly suggest looking at where Aries is in your chart. Because for the next... Actually, let me get the exact day. Here we go. March 24th, 2039 will be when Neptune will move into Taurus. Interesting, right? That's a lot of years. That's a lot of time. So about 13-ish years. What will transpire? Who will you become? Because it's gonna, by the time it's 2039, Neptune will have calmed down in Taurus. In Taurus, it will be much more mindful. In Taurus, it will be a lot slower, literally 180 of Aries. It will slow down. It will feel like, we will feel more in the now. Where with the Aries energy, right? Oh shoot. With the Aries energy, it does care about the now, right? Because Aries wants, it's like the J.G. Wentworth commercial. It's my money and I want it now. That's Aries. But it also thinks very much about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Aries is constantly moving, like Gemini. Aries does not want to sit still. It is like a child. It is. It very is. And I know a lot of people get annoyed with that because it is kind of like the cookbook cookie cutter definition of Aries as a child. But think about the positive side of the child archetype, right? A child archetype sees things that nobody else sees. It sees potential. It sees the magic. It sees the excitement. The curiosity of the child archetype comes out in Aries. So again, we can head in a very, very positive direction, or unfortunately, as soon as I thought about that, I'm really hoping not. I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that nothing comes out of this. Because again, we just talked about that. But look at how even as I know it comes from People magazine, but the period of time was marked by intense conflict, the fight for freedom, and a collective reimagining of identity. Because when you think about that, right, during the Civil War, right, we had a lot going on. I mean, it's and look at how that movie came out. When did that come out? The Civil War movie last year. It's interesting. That's not interesting for me. It's not. It's obvious, but I won't go into that on this video. So again, because history repeats itself. It was a time of like I said, two different people who thought that they were right, who thought that they had the right idea and they were doing the best thing for the country, right? Right here. This is like the perfect image of, I might make this the picture of Neptune and Aries. What you're going to see is more divisiveness, unfortunately. All right, that is my, you're getting it here, right? Fresh off the press. You're getting my, my prediction. And I don't use astrology as a predictive tool. I try to see astrology, especially because I'm an evolutionary astrologer first, I try to see it as how do we evolve? Well, that's the question. How do we evolve from this? Because the last time we went through this energy as a collective was during this period, right? So how do we evolve from that? How do we learn from that? How do we change from that? How do we grow from that? That's what astrology is saying. Astrology is saying, look, here's the lesson again. It's kind of like karmic lessons, right? That's why retrogrades are so important to pay attention to, because the karmic lessons come back around, and it's spirit, our higher self, the universe, saying, hey, did you learn your lesson? Let's do a quick test, right? It's kind of like a pop-up quiz, like we used to have in school. And you'd be like, oh shit, I didn't study. But then you sit down and you go through the questions and you're like, you know what, I naturally knew that. And if you naturally knew that, you're like, you know what, I did learn my lesson. If you don't naturally know that, you weren't paying attention in class, you didn't give a shit, you fail. And you get the karma again. So, what will transpire? Time will tell. I don't know. These are all triggers, right? That's what astrology is. I say it all the time, it's a trigger. It's like, you know what the image of my guides are giving me? You know those little chatter teeth where you wind them up? Right? Or any wind up toy, any wind up anything. Right? That's astrology. That's the planets. That's the gods of our archetypes that Carl Jung was talking about. Our psyche. Manifest in the material world. Right? So it's the winding up. Astrology winds it up. And then those teeth start chattering, or the car goes, or the whatever, whatever toy is getting wound up. And then we feel that. Now the question is, because everybody's chart is different, just like we all have an individual fingerprint, individual DNA, we all have individual birth charts. That's a lot of fucking people going through that same energy. But guess what? The collective karma, the collective conscious, will lead first. So, I hope this was entertaining, enlightening. I hope this was a teachable moment. That's really why I do these short. I could talk about this forever, but I won't. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you've seen any other. I know I've seen quite a few astrologers talk about it. Yeah, let me know how you feel and think. I love you. Be safe out there. And most importantly, have fun. Try to enjoy the ride. And I'll see you in the next one.